So this is the introduction to biochemistry. The first topic that we will cover for MLT 435, general biochemistry. So learning objective, what you will learn after you finish this lecture today. So I expect you should be able to understand the principles of biochemistry, the basic principle of biochemistry, the overview of chemical composition of living organism, the basis of organic and inorganic compound, and also the water properties and its importance. This is what we are going to cover today. The first one is the introduction to biochemistry, and we are going to learn about the elements, compounds, and different biomolecules. And one of the important elements that made up the human body is the carbon. So you will learn about the carbon, and also you will learn about the example of compound, which is the water. So you will learn about the water properties and its importance. And lastly, we will cover two different types of organic biological macromolecules. So what is biochemistry? Everyone should know what is the chemistry, but what is biochemistry? So bio means life. Okay, so the word biochemistry means the chemistry of living beings or the chemical basis of life. So life in biochemistry point of view is related to hundreds of biochemical reaction and biochemical processes. You have no idea how complicated is it. But in order to learn more complicated things, we need to have a basic principles of what biochemistry is. So those reaction and processes occurring in subcellular organelles of a cell in an organized manner. Okay? And what they are dealing with. To learn about the reaction and processes, it deals with biochemical constituents of human body. What made up biomolecules? Elements made compounds bound together to make the molecules, right? And also their interaction in body cells. And the important is that it is needed to maintain normal health, growth, and reproduction and related diseases. Okay. So this is a principal area of biochemistry. So if you're familiar with this table or figure, you will learn about the hierarchy of life, level of organization. We know that the basic unit of living thing is atom. Atom made up molecules, and different molecules build up to form a macromolecules. Those are non-living components. So what we are learning in biochemistry is that we want to study about these non-living components, how their structure, function will affect the cell-cells interaction that controls our body metabolism. Okay, so the first one, we want to learn about the chemical structure and functions of different types of biomolecules, and also about the interaction and organization of different biomolecules within cells. And also biochemistry comprises of different types of cellular metabolism. When we talk about cellular metabolism, it happens in cell. Okay, those anabolic and catabolic processes here happens in individual cells. And also there are bioenergetics or energy flow in cells. This reaction in each individual cells, we call it metabolic reaction. Okay, you will learn how those macromolecules that you gain from your food or your diet will enter your cells and will be metabolized by the processes or reactions in those cells. Okay, how bigger molecules or macromolecules will be into more smaller molecule by anabolic and catabolic pathway. Okay, we will learn about that. At the end of this lecture, I will explain to you what is catabolic and anabolic. But I want you to know there are two major breakthroughs in the history of biochemistry. The first one, the discovery of enzymes as catalysts or substance that enhance one specific reaction. By time when scientists discover about the role of enzyme, James Sumner showed that enzymes are proteins. So they already learn about the protein, the existence of the proteins, and enzyme is actually the proteins in 1926, something like that. And also the second one, the major breakthrough, is the role of nucleic acid as information carrying molecules. And I already listed several here, but it's actually, if you're referring to the actual timeline, there are so many discoveries on nucleic acid. Okay, from the DNA as a genetic material, the double helix models, the central dogma. If you know about the central dogma, from the DNA become RNA, RNA become the protein. That is the central dogma. And about the carcinogenesis, the genomic era, and gene editing. If you're familiar with gene editing, now the famous technique is the CRISPR-Cas9. So we edit the gene. Until now, there are several research has been conducted for more discoveries on proteins and also nucleic acid. Okay, so the first one, I want to introduce to you the chemical composition of living organism. So what are the elements, compounds, and biomolecules that exist? So in our human body, there are different types of chemical composition, and we can divide it into elements, compounds, and biomolecules. In human, there are 20 essential of elements that exist in our body, and also the water, the compound, the protein, the biomolecules, all of these made up the human body. So what are the elements of human body? So over 100 chemical elements that you found in predictable, only about 20 occur naturally in plants and animals. And I can divide it into 3 categories, which is element found in abundant or essential for life. We as a human, plant, animals require carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur for living, right? Okay, also elements found in trace quantities and very likely essential for life: calcium, ferrum, iron, and also the traces elements that may be essential for life as well. Biomolecules vary in their chemical structure and reactivity based on the chemical elements and compounds that are combined with them. So we want to study biomolecules, but I need to explain to you how molecule is actually made up. The most abundant is carbon element. So you need to know the carbon, because carbon is the backbone of our molecules that we want to learn. So carbon can form 4 bonds, which can be single, double, or triple bonds. And each bond is very stable, okay? And the link C atom, this is what we call it as a backbone here. So they are tied together in chain or rings. So this is just a simplest example that I can give to you. Ethane with 2 carbon atoms. If you want to look at more complicated, that you can see our DNA double helix, which a carbon made up the sugar phosphate backbone. The next thing you need to know is about the organic and inorganic compound. So organic compounds actually made up with the carbon atom in it, and inorganic compound does not necessarily have carbon atom in the structure. So the organic compound mainly present in living organism. Okay, so the composition of organic, so essentially they have carbon, usually they have hydrogen and oxygen. And inorganic, chemical elements other than carbon, and it has a covalent chemical bonds for organic, but for inorganic, usually ionic bonding. And organic mostly not soluble due to their hydrophobicity, and inorganic usually water soluble due to ionic bonding. And organic mainly sources of energy, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acid, protein are our main source of energy. And inorganic mainly as catalysts, for example, water, ammonia. Okay. So let's try this. What about limestone? Is it organic or inorganic?
Organic compound.
Okay. So it is organic compound. So how about distilled water? I already mentioned it just now. It is
Inorganic.
Inorganic.
All right. Because it doesn't have carbon in it. Okay. And how about hydrochloric acid?
Inorganic.
Organic.
Acid is
Organic.
okay. How about ascorbic acid?
Organic.
Organic.
Yes. And sugar?
Organic.
Organic.
And silver nitrate?
Inorganic.
Inorganic.
Okay. Good. Okay, so you already know how to differentiate between organic and inorganic compound, okay? Okay, so we learn about the types of inorganic compound, which is water. So the properties of water comprises of, we will learn about its polarity and electronegativity, and about the bonding, the hydrogen bond between the molecules, and the nature of nucleophilics, its ionization, hydrophobic interaction, and also other non-covalent interaction with other biomolecules, and also water as a universal solvent. This is the structure of water. Two hydrogen atom bound to oxygen. Okay, so oxygen is more, naturally it is more electronegative than hydrogen because there is some difference of in terms of electronegativity. So it form the what we call it as a polarity. So uneven distribution is called a dipole, and the bond is said to be polar. Okay, so we call it as a dipole-dipole interaction because of difference of electronegativity. So if you look at the actual structure of the water, it quite bending for the H atom because difference electronegativity that form the polarity in it. Okay. So you understand this one. I think this is very basic. Everyone should know the structure of H2O. Okay. So electron are pulled toward the oxygen, creating a slightly positive charge region. So this overall unequal charge is represented by the Greek delta, the dipole here. Negative, positive, positive. And the H and O interaction here, or bonding, we call it the covalent bonding. Okay. How about the hydrogen bonding? So hydrogen bonding occur between different water molecules. Okay, this is hydrogen bond. One molecules of water binds to other molecule of water using hydrogen bonding, and covalent bond form in the molecules of water itself, H and O. Please please understand clearly about the bonding. Otherwise, you will be confused later when we jump into the metabolic reaction, how this bonding is breaking and so on. So hydrogen bonding has weaker interaction as compared to covalent bond. Okay, H2O is both a hydrogen donor and acceptor, and one H2O can form 4 hydrogen bonds. Okay. And hydrogen bonds give water higher melting points at specific heat and heat vaporization. Okay, the nucleophilic nature of water. What is a nucleophile? A nucleophile is an electron-rich molecule that is attracted to positively charged or electron-deficient species, which is the electrophile. And water is nucleophile. It is a highly negative charge or have unshared pair of electrons, which attack the electrophile, the electron-deficient species during substitution or addition reactions. So this is very basic properties of water. Okay. I think the most important properties of water that you should know is actually the polarity and water as universal solvent. Okay, water ionization and pH. So pure water molecules are ionized to become positively charged hydronium ion and hydroxide ion. Okay, so when it's being breaking, it will be separated into hydronium ion H3O plus and also hydroxide ion OH minus. So if two H2O together, but if one water molecule undergo ionization, it will be broken down into hydroxyl ion, the OH minus, and also the hydrogen ion, the H plus. Okay, hydrophobic interaction. So non-polar molecules are not soluble in water because the water molecules interact with each other rather to non-polar molecules, which is the hydrophobic. So molecules such as detergents or surfactant are amphipathic. We call it have both hydrophilic and hydrophobic portions to the molecule, so that when you pour your detergents or surfactant, it forms micelles in aqueous solution. in terms of difference polarity. Okay, so example of other non-covalent interaction in biomolecules or in water molecules. So one, hydrogen bonds, maybe interaction with other proteins or nucleic acid. Charge-charge interaction or electrostatic interactions, the ionic bonding, so occur between two oppositely charged particles. So negative and negative particle cannot interact with each other, right? It has to be oppositely charged. And strongest non-covalent force that occurs over greater distance can be weakened significantly by water molecule. So water molecules can interfere the bonding of charge-charge interactions molecule. And van der Waals forces, I'm not going to explain about the detail about the van der Waals forces, just for you to know that it occurs between your neutral atoms. It can be attractive or repulsive depending upon the distance of the two atoms. So you need to know that van der Waals forces is much weaker than hydrogen bonding, but usually focus and understand about the hydrogen bonding. So we learn about how hydrogen bond form, and also how it is being breaking down during our metabolic reaction topic. Okay. So water as universal solvent. So in order to facilitate bioreaction or metabolic reactions, our body require water. Water as a solvent for it. So it is an excellent solvent because it is small and it weakens electrostatic forces and hydrogen bonding between polar molecules. So the positive part of the water, the H part, attract and pull off negative part of solute, while the negative part of water attract and pull off positive part of the solute. So water is so attracted to the charges and solute molecule that is disrupt their structure. It breaks them apart or dissolve them. So for example, this is a water molecule as a solvent. And then I give an example, sodium chloride as a solute. So when mixed together, so it form like ionization processes occur. So the negative charge of the solute, attracted to the positively charged hydrogen atom in water. So oppositely charged molecule will attract to each other, right? Okay, that's how it forms we call it as a dipole charge interaction. Okay. So as same for the sodium. Sodium is positively charged and it will attracted to the negatively charged oxygen in water. Okay, so I hope you understand this one. So it is about different charge of mixture of water and solute. Okay. Okay. So why water is important? Why we choose this topic to introduce to you in the first lecture, in the first topic? Because you need to know that metabolic reaction in human body require water in order to facilitate the processes or reaction. Okay, so water, as I said, it is essential part of most metabolic processes within the organism. And metabolism is actually the sum total of all body reactions, including those that build up molecules or breaking down molecules. So processes that build up larger molecules, we call it as a anabolic reactions. And metabolism that involve in breaking down molecule, we call it catabolic reaction. So please bear in mind about this difference. When we go into the metabolism topic, so you will hear about the anabolic and catabolic so many times. So just bear in mind. So for example, in anabolic reactions, water is generally removed from small molecules in order to make larger molecules. Okay, this is carbon dioxide. This is water. When require energy, it will become it's glucose, right? In the process of photosynthesis. So in catabolic reaction, the breaking down process, glucose is breaking down into water, carbon dioxide, and also release energy. So that how it goes. So it is like a cycle processes from anabolic to reaction, and then you need to be breaking down, and they will perform the catabolic, something like that. Okay, that is for cellular respiration, for example. So this one is just for example, but different types of metabolism also, we call it anabolic and catabolic. So this slide is actually, I want to show you the difference between the anabolic and catabolic reaction. So of course, we will learn about the detail in the other topics, okay? So I finished with the elements and compounds. So let's move on to other bigger molecules that made up our body, which is the organic biological macromolecule. Okay, organic biomolecules, or we call it macromolecules. So macro is big, so big molecules. So many of the critical nutrients that we obtain from our food or diet are in a form of biological molecules. So we usually heard about eating proteins, low carbo, high carbo, right? It's actually types of macromolecules that we obtain from our diet. Okay. So there are 4 major classes of macromolecules, which is the carbohydrate, lipids or fats, protein, and nucleic acid. Okay, so what is the macromolecules made up? So it is made up by a subunit. We call it as a monomers, where it is connected each other, 2 or more monomers by a covalent bond to form polymers. So many types of monomer are connected to each other by covalent bond to form a polymer. And so in protein structure or different types of biomolecule structure, you need to know what is the subunit of protein. What is the subunit of carbohydrate? Nucleic acid. What is the subunit? So you need to know that in order to learn different types of polymer that they made up. Okay, so I put this figure for you all to know the components of macromolecules. So the subunit for proteins is actually amino acid. So different types, there are 20 amino acid. So different type of classes that made up different types of protein. And subunit of lipids is actually the fatty acid. And subunit of carbohydrate is sugar residues. Which types? We will learn different types that made up glycerol or monosaccharide or polysaccharide. Okay, and glycerol also derived from monomer of sugar, but it can make the lipid, but we will learn. Okay, and the subunit of DNA, of course, the nucleobases. Okay, so all of this, they have different structures, different functions, and different cellular metabolism. We will learn together all of those macromolecule structure, functions, and also its metabolism. Okay, so I give an example here. Major classes of different biological macromolecules. The first one is carbohydrate, including sugar, starches, fibers, and it contains carbon, hydrogen, oxygen as the backbone. I mean not backbone, but the composition. But the backbone is actually the carbon. Okay, there are subtypes, different subtypes, monosaccharides or disaccharides or polychain, polysaccharide. Okay. And lipid made up of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, fats, oil, waxes, and different types of elements. And it is insoluble in water, but soluble in non-polar solvent. We will see what solvent the lipid dissolve. Okay. Protein, the subunit is amino acids, which contain the amine group, carboxyl group, hydrogen group, and side chains. And in terms of structure, proteins have primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary protein structure. And nucleic acid, which we will not cover in this course, but you need to know that it contains oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Okay, the polymerization of nucleotide leads to the synthesis of nucleic acid.